But from your vantage point as the former director of the CIA, what is the danger to the American public? What is the danger to our national security of having a president who is supposed to be focused on keeping all of us safe, spending so much of his energy instead keeping himself safe?
Well, because the presidency is a 24/7 job. I worked for 6 presidents, and they all took their jobs and responsibilities seriously. But Donald Trump seems to continue to just pursue his own self-entitlement in terms of what it is that he wants to do. And so the danger is all of these issues related to our domestic situation in terms of the growing cost of living, the skyrocketing cost of gas and fuel, the Iran war, other issues. He is, in fact, just focusing on the things that really matter to him. He exhibits all of the traits, in my mind, of a malignant narcissist. A malignant narcissist is somebody who has a pathology in terms of dishonesty, lying, self-aggrandizement, entitlement, paranoia, but also inflicting cruelty on others. Taking delight, in fact, in that. We see it in authoritarian leaders around the globe over the past century, that these are individuals who actually enjoy this cruelty, as we see what's happening with Jim Comey and what he's doing to other individuals as well. And he's focused on that as opposed to really trying to roll up his sleeves and figure out how are we going to get out of this affordability crisis that we're in right now? How are we going to get out of this Iran war that was so unnecessary and is affecting not just the U.S. economy, but global economy? Mm-hmm. He is focused on the things that really don't matter to the average American, which is why this is so dangerous that he continues to just have this authority and this power that he wields, and with Republicans, your former friends on the Congress, who continue to allow him to go down this road at the expense of American interests. It's just reprehensible.
It's reprehensible and it's crazy, and the American people are clocking it, for lack of a better term. You know, if you look on not just social media, but the polls. We talked a lot about the polls in the 7 a.m. hour. 7 a.m., Lord. 7 p.m. Goodness. It's the NyQuil, y'all. In the 7 p.m. hour, and the polls are just bad for Trump. Like, the people, they don't feel good about what's going on. They don't feel good about his job. We all see it. There are people that are like, why is he doing this? Can't someone get rid of him? Well, the answer is no, not really, because he has a Congress that is unwilling to check him. And I know we're not thinking the people that are doing his bidding and that won't even tell him that the shoes are too big are going to invoke the 25th Amendment. So it's just like there's a hopelessness, I think, that people are feeling about the current state of what's going on. And can we find some hope for the people? Where is the hope, Director Brennan?
Well, I like to think that some members of the Republican Party are going to come to their senses. But as you see the polls shifting, I do think a lot of these individuals in Congress are going to be looking after themselves and their political prospects and realize that Donald Trump is dragging them down, that he's continuing to go down these roads that are counterproductive to them, counterproductive to the American people, even counterproductive to him. Again, one of the traits of a malignant narcissist is never acknowledging mistake. Mm-hmm. Always staying on the offense. That's why we're having such a problem with Iran right now. Mm-hmm. He made a big mistake in terms of this operation against Iran. He's not going to acknowledge that. He's not going to dig himself out of this hole because he's saying, we're winning, mm-hmm. we're winning. So this is a real personality problem here, that he is not going to come to terms with reality. And unfortunately, the people around him in the White House, the Republicans in Congress, continue to just applaud him and tell the emperor that he's fully clothed. He's fully clothed when he's not.
He's butt naked. And that's the problem. And it exposes the country to a whole lot of hot mess, particularly when, as we know, 13 service members have already lost their lives. When you're spending untold billions of dollars a week for a war that is sucking the economic life out of families and communities around the country. And so you have these realities that are hitting close to home that we've talked about over the last hour. How do you assess that from both a global perspective, as someone who has talked to and spent time in other parts of the world that are also being buffeted by these economic realities, as some of our guests have already noted? It's going to be a little bit, recovery is going to be harder for our friends maybe in Europe and in the Middle East and elsewhere than maybe for us because of how our economy is structured. But nonetheless, people are going to be impacted. How does that play in the storyline of future oligarchies, future, people, heads of state who want to suddenly become authoritarian, to seize on the discontent that is going to brew out of these places in the future because of the economic downturns?
I think the real impact is that our friends, allies, and partners are moving away from us. They realize that what Donald Trump reflects is a sentiment within the United States, which is this America first. We're going to use our muscularity against others. And so I think they're going to be hedging their bets. Also, I think some authoritarians, and this is why I think we saw Viktor Orban being pushed out by the polls, because they see that these corrupt individuals are dishonest and they are advancing their own interests and the interests of their cronies. And all of the individuals here, the billionaires who are profiting from a lot of these corrupt deals, and the way that the Trump administration has been able to use this economy in order to, again, enrich itself. This is what I think a lot of people now are looking at and seeing the failings of corruption. And I'm hoping that it's going to be evidenced at the polls, not just here in the United States, but in places around the globe.
We talked about James Comey, but I want to make sure we talk about Jerome Powell, lest he feel left out of the retribution campaign. This is Jeanine Pirro saying just yesterday that case is ongoing. Take a listen.
We continue to litigate the issue, and we will litigate the issue.
So it does not sound like you're committing to, if the Inspector General finds nothing, you won't move forward. It sounds like you're going to keep trying to find out more.
No, it depends on what he finds.
Depends on what he finds. But if he finds nothing...
Let me tell you something. When I was a DA, Child Protective Services would come in and say, we found nothing. It's often that I could go in and say, you found nothing, but I found a crime.
I pose the question to the table, but Director Brennan, you can take it first. I mean, how much are we watching America's next top attorney general? To what extent is this about Pirro, just like Blanche, auditioning for a role?
I think they're all auditioning right now. I think they're trying to demonstrate that they're willing to do things that even Pam Bondi wasn't willing to do. So whether it's Jim Comey or Jerome Powell or others who are on that target list, I think we're going to continue to see these efforts in order to impress Donald Trump that they will do his bidding for him, irrespective of the law, of ethics, of conscience, of what is good government. But the rule of law right now is really in sort of crisis situation. The system of justice, quite frankly, in the minds of many, is broken. Thankfully, there are some judges and some prosecutors and members of the U.S. attorney offices who are holding firm. I'm hoping they will continue to do so. And I do think with Trump's approval rating going down and down and down, I think more and more people are going to see he's not your long-term bet. You know, his heyday is behind us, and now they're going to start distancing themselves from us. But you have people who are willing to stay with him right to the end. And whether you're Todd Blanche or Jeanine Pirro, you really have to be thinking about how you've just ruined your reputation. How, these were individuals who actually, spent their careers in law, but yet they're willing to give all of that away just in order to get Donald Trump's approval. And it's, again, unconscionable.